You worked hard. You pushed for it. You finally landed that raise. And then, 3 months later, you check your bank account and realize nothing has changed. The balance is the same. The stress is the same. You still have that nagging feeling that you're just barely keeping your head above water, no matter how hard you grind. So, what happened? Here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody mentions during your annual review. A raise on paper and more money in your life are two completely different things. The gap between them isn't an accident. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly where your raise went, and the one specific shift you can make to ensure the next one actually sticks. Let's start with the most obvious culprit: taxes. When your salary goes up, you move into a higher tax bracket. Most people hear that and immediately panic, thinking the government is suddenly going to take a bigger chunk of everything they earn. That fear is actually a total myth, and it causes a lot of unnecessary anxiety every single year. Here's how it actually works. Your income is divided into layers. The first layer, let's say the first $15,000, is taxed at the lowest rate. The next layer is taxed slightly more, and so on. When you get a raise, only the new portion of your income moves into that higher bracket. The government doesn't suddenly tax your entire salary at the new rate. Mathematically, it is impossible for a raise to actually leave you with less money than you had before. But here is what is possible, and it's just as frustrating, even if it's less obvious. Your raise is measured in dollars, but inflation is measured in purchasing power. These two things move independently, and they almost never move in sync. Inflation is simply the rate at which the cost of everything rises. Food, rent, gas, healthcare, the stuff you touch every single day. In recent years, inflation has hovered between 4 and 8% in many places, sometimes even higher. Meanwhile, the average salary increase for someone staying in the same role is usually around 3%. So, if prices are rising by 5%, but your salary only went up 3%, you didn't actually get a raise. You took a 2% pay cut. You have more dollars in your hand, but those dollars buy significantly less than they did last year. The number on your paycheck went up, but your quality of life didn't. This is what we call a real wage decrease, and it has been quietly eroding the middle class for over 30 years. From 1979 to now, worker productivity has soared by over 60% in most developed economies, yet real wages for the average worker have barely budged. We are producing much more than we used to, but the financial reward for that extra work, after accounting for inflation, is almost non-existent. The raise feels like progress because the number is bigger, but in terms of what your life actually costs, it isn't. But there's a third layer to this, and it surprises most people. Your gross raise and your net raise are two very different numbers. Your boss might agree to pay you $4,000 more per year. That sounds like an extra $333 every month. But before that money ever hits your bank account, it has to pass through a gauntlet of deductions: income tax on that new amount, Social Security, pension contributions, and maybe even adjustments to your health insurance. By the time you actually see it, you might only be looking at 50 or 60 cents of every dollar you were promised. That $4,000 raise might only turn into $2,000 of actual take-home pay. Spread across 12 months, that's only about $166 a month. Then, inflation comes in and eats away at the value of that $166. You negotiated for $333, but you're left with maybe $90 or $100 of actual usable buying power. And finally, there is the last layer, the one people are often too embarrassed to talk about. When our income goes up, our spending tends to follow. Psychologists call this lifestyle inflation. In plain English, when we feel like we have a little extra, we spend a little extra, often without even realizing we're doing it. A slightly more expensive coffee here, another streaming subscription there, taking an Uber instead of the bus because you can afford it now. Individually, these changes are tiny, but together, they swallow your entire raise within 90 days. You end up right back where you started. A higher salary on your contract, but the same old feeling in your bank account. This isn't a character flaw. It's a documented pattern in behavioral economics. It happens to people of every income level and every generation. It's just never discussed during performance reviews. I want you to hear this clearly. This is not a you problem. You're caught in the crosshairs of three simultaneous forces: tax drag, inflation, and automatic spending adjustments. None of these were explained to you, and none of them are things you can fully control on your own. The system isn't designed to make you feel the raise. It's designed to keep you at a consistent level of financial tension, regardless of how hard you work. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's just the natural result of how wages, taxes, and prices interact. Naming the problem is the first step. The next step is actually useful. If you want to make a change that works, you have to do one thing. Before you spend a single cent of that new raise, allocate it deliberately. Not all of it, just the extra portion. Give it a job before it has a chance to disappear. If you get a raise that adds $160 to your monthly take-home pay, decide exactly where that money is going before it even hits your account. For example, set $70 to go straight toward savings or debt. Automate it so you never even see it. Put $50 toward a specific quality of life upgrade you've been wanting, and let the remaining $40 roll into your regular day-to-day spending. This is what I call pre-allocation. You're deciding the fate of your raise before the impulse to spend it can quietly swallow it up. You aren't being stingy. You're just being faster than your own autopilot. Now, this won't stop inflation, and it won't change your tax bracket, but it does break that frustrating cycle where every raise seems to vanish into your daily expenses without actually changing your financial situation. The raise itself is real. The problem is everything that happens to that money between the moment your boss promises it and the moment it actually affects your life. Now that you know what those things are, you're already ahead. If this explains something you've felt for years but could never quite articulate, then you're in the right place. Every week, we dive into the actual mechanics behind the financial frustrations most people deal with every single month. There's no jargon, no finger-pointing, and we never pretend this is easy, because it isn't. Hit like if this clicked for you, and subscribe so you don't miss our next breakdown. And if you know someone who's working harder than ever, but wondering why they aren't getting ahead, send this to them. It might be exactly what they need to hear right now.